So Romanian is actually a Latin language, so one of the Romance languages. And from what I've heard is that it's the closest to Latin of them all. I've found that it's very close to Italian. I can understand a decent amount of Spanish, a little bit of Portuguese, and no French. But if it's reading, I can kind of understand reading French. So they're all kind of similar in that regard. A beautiful language, one of my favorites, and it does have some Russian influences to it, because, you know, the word for yes is da, instead of what you see in like Spanish as si, or French oui. So there are differences and Russian influences to it. I've been told my accent is actually fairly Russian for some reason. I never understood that one. But it is a fairly difficult language, I would say. But if you put the time into it, it's a lot of very the rules are stuck to pretty well. So like the grammar rules that they teach you in the MTC and wherever you learn in grammar books, those will stick, like they're most of the time fairly accurate, as opposed to English, which has the weirdest of all conjugations and whatever. So once you get the rules down, it's a decent enough language. I do consider it probably the most beautiful language, but I'm probably biased in that regard. So there are a couple of different letters that are in the alphabet, but most of them make a noise that's fairly common to what we know. I have an S with a squiggly under it, which makes a sh noise, and then a T with a squiggly under it, which is a ts noise. But then there's also, what they have is, we'd call them A-hats and I-hats. And they make a sound that we can't really compare to in English. It's kind of like, they always compare it in the MTC as if being punched in the stomach. The noise that you'd make from that, that's the noise that it makes. So it's a noise right in the back of your throat. And a lot of times you can't tell the difference if you're not trained to it. So it just sounds like another one of the vowels that's close to it. And so it's kind of interesting to hear the differences and people trying to pronounce it when they don't know what it actually sounds like. Sound can actually be very difficult until you get used to it. Definitely study the grammar. And listen to people to work on your accent. I feel like those two things are probably the best to do. Because the grammar helped me out so much. I was spending a lot of time studying, and I was able to see how it worked out. And though I may not have used that grammar per se, if I heard it, I knew what they were referring to. And listening to people is probably the most important thing that you could ever do. Even if you don't get much missionary work from talking to people will help you improve how well you speak, how well you understand, and make it so you sound more like a Romanian.